So it was a time, I think, in retrospect, where we were trying to explore, as professionals, as students, we were trying to redefine how to perform, how to work with our people. We were trying to substantiate, contextualize, and legitimize a relevant discourse for our Latino community in the area of psychosocial health. Moreover, these activities and practices also advocated respect for diversity, given the diversity of needs in an increasingly diverse Latino community with diverse histories and realities. There were the first, second, and third generation Puerto Ricans, for example. Those are 3 different groups. And the constant back and forth migrations. Then there were the Cuban immigrants and the Marielitos. And then the community of exiles from Chile and Argentina. Okay? Then the migrations of the Central Americans, fleeing their war-torn countries. Then the growing community, Dominican presence. The coming together in Boston and in other communities in Massachusetts provided us a challenge in order to meet an already underserved population. The scenario was one of increasingly bilingual youth, of victims of torture and exiles, of those of aquí, of allá, of those who are between worlds, entre mundos, of people sin patria, of los marginados, deslocados, los desplazados de historia, cultura. That was the people that we were working with. And we weren't prepared for that in any of our classes and any of our programs, okay? Nobody ever explained how to work with somebody who had been tortured by the military of Chile. Nobody taught us how to deal with a family that had come cross country fleeing from El Salvador. Okay? Nobody had clarified to us how to work with a bilingual adolescent in a family when language is the issue, and the language then also is the power issue. So there was a lot of experiences going on, many of which still have to be written and clarified. Many of the case discussions that went on in many areas have not been printed. And that's where those experiences have to come forth. We need to get all that information and do a book on all that knowledge that has been out there, those experiences of ours. Now, certainly arguments definitely surfaced during this period against the, I can't say this word too well, homogenization of Latinos, because everybody thought the Latinos were all one. We're not all one. Blacks are not all one, okay? There are diversity within the Latino groups because of different cultural histories, because of different styles. There are similarities, and we have to celebrate the similarities, and we also have to celebrate the differences. But this history would be incomplete without mentioning the programs and projects that developed dialectically, and which were the dynamic forums for relevant issues to be practiced, and where daily encounters gave testimony indeed to the needs, problems, strengths, and struggles of the Latino community. Do you remember some of these programs? Some exist still. The Jamaica Plain Outreach Program. Yay, there's some of us in the Jamaica Plain Outreach Program. The Jamaica Plain Outreach Program did some wonderful things. It put out some comic books. Who's seen those comic books? Who still has comic books that, all right, a few of you, we have to do a historical tour, you know? Somebody has to retake this history and write it up. But the comic books were excellent educational tools. They were creative, they were relevant, okay? They were well done. Don't ask me how we got the money. And they were excellent educational tools. One was on sex, the other one was on schools, right? Chapter 766, the whole message, 766, right. Excellent, absolutely excellent creative. Then there was the HOT team. The HOT, it's called HOT. That meant Hispanic Outreach Team that worked in Jamaica Plain, okay? Then there was the Hispanic Program of Worcester, which has done tremendously creative work. The Latino Clinic of Cambridge Hospital, the Hispanic Program of Mass Mental, which I think exists, EVA at South End, the Casa Mirna Vázquez, the Gandara Mental Health Center in Springfield. They used to have frequent conferences to put together these issues. La Alianza Hispana in Roxbury, the Martha Elliott Human Service Programs. These were all programs that were active. They had Latino components, there were mainly Latino components. But you know what happened during this period, thinking back, is that at that time we had so much work to do that we couldn't step back and look. And what are we doing? How are we doing what we're doing? Because sometimes you have too much to do. So you just do it, right? And you carry on the best you can with your ideas and you argue stuff, but you try to, you know, meet the need and provide the service. So if I were to think back of what were the ideas, what were the theories, what was the prevailing theories there, the prevailing practices, I would say that we were attempting to what I call, or what I think was happening was the emergence of what I call a discourse for liberation, for emancipation. Whether we were consciously or unconsciously, whether we were deliberately or undeliberately doing it, we were going towards that vision, towards that paradigm. People would say, oh, I didn't know that. But when you think about it, we were talking of a series of things that you put them together, respond to that vision, which I will talk about. Now, what needs to be pointed out as a prevailing constant throughout all of this history and present in the lives and experience of major sectors of the Latino community were the glaring realities of poverty, of socioeconomic inequality, of discrimination and racism, of sexism and classism, of various forms of colonialism, and of the persistence of the ideological masking of the major sources of psychosocial distress and trauma in our community. The sequel of disenfranchisement and of oppression is but the distorted, chronified expression of injustice and dehumanization. Among the things that we see were feelings of powerlessness, self-destructive tendencies and behaviors, structurally learned brutalization, I will call it, depression and acting out, dependency and self-defeating behaviors, lack of sense of identity or of self, recurrent uncontrollable anxieties, submissiveness, fatalismo, trauma, and overwhelming experiences of loss, loss of self, loss of identity, loss of country. These were the things we were seeing, and we would analyze them in different ways, sometimes maybe victimizing the victim, not deliberately, sometimes hoping that our work could be liberating without maybe intending it to be liberating. We weren't within that discourse consciously. But from this panorama, from frustrations and failures, and from rewarding experiences, and armed with the illuminating concepts of Pablo Freire, of Franz Fanon, of Freud, of the Frankfurt School, of José Ignacio Martín Baró, and other critical theorists in the areas of psychology, sociology, education, and psychiatry, it became increasingly clear that our mental health practices, that our therapeutic interventions, and that our community action approaches had to be informed and legitimized from a perspective that sided with emancipatory ideals.